Welcome to episode 26 of DJ Center Stage TV. I'm Jim Collins. I'm here with Mike Walter. Mike, I'll spare you the eulogy introduction this time. I think when I did the introduction last time, you were able to go take Shay for a walk and make it back in time for the end.
It was very nice. Although calling it a eulogy is kind of weird. I guess that's kind of what it was, but that's weird to hear your own eulogy.
Well, I almost felt like I was hearing my own eulogy there. That was beautiful.
So I think everyone knows who you are. So it was last December. It was our very first episode of DJ Center Stage TV. You were just finishing decorating your Christmas tree. Man, it's been a while. So now, did you beat me to it again and get all your decorating?
No, we haven't done Christmas tree yet. How about you? Do you have yours up?
No, okay. I'm always last minute with that. But so how's everything going?
Very good. It's very good. 2017 has been a good year. Very busy. Some traveling involved. Everything else. How about for you?
Good. Just getting busy, meeting with a lot of couples now. Business is really good. So I'm excited about what's yet to come.
Good.
So you reached a pretty insane milestone with Elite Entertainment, right? As far as your reviews on Wedding Wire, you have like 10 million reviews of 5 stars or something.
Not quite. We actually passed the 1,500 mark earlier in the year, and then we just passed the 1,600 mark a few weeks ago. So
wow! Congratulations!
We're really excited about. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you and Joe Bunn have been doing the PhD podcast. I listen to it faithfully every Thursday. It's killer. I love it. And you're up to what?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're up to episode 46 right now.
We just recorded 46. So that's why I was 5 minutes late hopping on with you, because I was wrapping up with Joe. And that's actually why, I guess a year ago, did I have this contraption? I don't think I did, but
no, you didn't. No.
I bought the microphone and the kind of whatever this little red box thing is that sits on my table here. I bought this for the sound quality of our podcast, and I think it really does. It sounds different. There's been a few times on the podcast where I had to record at the office with the earbuds and the little microphone, and you can definitely hear the difference. I mean, there's a discernible difference. So if you are, and I know a lot of people are doing podcasts from home nowadays and everything else, it's worth, I think this was about a $400 investment. The microphone, I know it kind of leaves the screen here, but it attaches to my a table that I have down in my basement, and that sounds great. And with the cans, I can kind of hear you a little bit clearer. So if anybody watches the episode from a year ago compared to this year, I look like I'm in a radio studio. It's still just my basement, but I've got a little bit more gear. And I'm drinking a cat from my Cowboys mug. I'm still supporting my team, even though we've had a rough couple of weeks. Rough.
Indeed. So how did that come about? I think were you inspired by Mitch Taylor's podcast?
Joe is always the more aggressive of the two of us as far as marketing, and he was the one that had the idea to put the whole workshop together. And he started hitting me last year. It was probably right around this time last year. Hey, we should do a weekly podcast. We've got so much that we want to share with the industry and everything else. And we thought it would be a good way to kind of tease and introduce the whole concept of the workshop. So we started doing it, I think, in mid-January, I think, last year. Well, yeah, that would make sense, right? Because 46 episodes, we're 6 episodes away from our anniversary, and that would put us in early January. And it's been fun. And I've always said that, much like you've been doing this, once a week?
Monthly.
Okay. But either way, you've kept it going for an entire year. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that a lot of people start podcasts and blogs and just edit and go, I'm going to do this every blah, blah, blah. And so many of them die on the vine. Yeah. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that you run out of topics to talk about, or in your case, I guess, run out of people to interview, because that's what your show is. You're interviewing. So as long as you can maintain once a month finding somebody in the industry who is worth talking to and having a conversation with, then you'll continue doing this, as long as you're the person going out of your way to kind of schedule it and, wrangle that person up. And for Joe and I, it's every Wednesday morning, 8:30. We have it blocked off unless one of us is traveling, and we take turns. This week it was my turn to come up with the topic. Next week it'll be his turn. And we've had a couple of times during the year where it was this close to, hey, we have nothing this week, let's just skip it. Right. But we've both been disciplined enough to say, nope, we're not going to skip it. We're going to get her done. And we've had some episodes that I think were good, and we've had some episodes that I think were really good and that got some traction, and people have shared a lot and taken a lot from. So I think overall it's been a fun adventure for 46 weeks with Joe.
Yeah, definitely. And coming up with topics together, collaborating with what you're going to talk about also helps, I'm sure. I mean,
I don't think I would have the discipline or the creativity to come up with all, if it was just me. If I was flipping a microphone on once a week myself, I don't know. And it's very similar to working out with a partner. When I'm training for a race, if I've got somebody like my friend Dave Nace and I, we haven't done it recently, but for years we would train together for races. And, if you're going to meet somebody Thursday morning, 8 a.m. for a run, you're not going to skip that. But you tell yourself, hey, I'm getting up tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and going for a run. Well, if it's only you, there's a chance you might skip it. But if I got to meet Dave Nace in Long Branch, or I got to meet my friend Eric up in Cranford because I scheduled a run with him, then I'm not going to skip it. And I think it's the same type of thing with the workshop that Joe and I have been doing. Neither one of us wants to be the guy to say, hey, I can't make it this week. So there is something to that having a partner in this, it certainly helps.
When are you having the next workshop, and what do you have planned?
Thank you. So our next one is kind of dovetailed with the Mobile Beat show in Las Vegas. It is a great couple of days in Las Vegas in the winter. So for any of us, as you can see, I'm it's a chilly day here in New Jersey. For anyone who comes from the Northeast or the North where you actually get a winter, it's kind of nice to fly to Las Vegas in the winter or early spring and enjoy some warm weather. And let's face it, Vegas is a fun town. There's a lot to do there. And the education at Mobile Beat, I think, is fantastic. So Mobile Beat in and of itself is a great reason to make the trip. And then what Joe and I have done, and this is the second time we're doing it. We did this 2 years ago. We are going to start our workshop literally when Mobile Beat ends on Thursday afternoon. A half hour later, we begin the workshop. So we've got a half a day on Thursday and then a full day of education on Friday. And I think it'll be great. We got great feedback when we did it 2 years ago, and we have a good group of signups already that I think will grow between now and March. So I think it's going to be a fantastic couple of days.
What are some of the takeaways from that? What have you heard as far as the responses from other industry?
So I think the biggest things are, first and foremost, marketing. Joe and I both spend a fair amount of time on sharing our expertise as far as marketing, and not just marketing in general, but specifically to this new generation. What if you've been in this business long enough, you should understand the fact that marketing 15 years ago and marketing today is completely different. It's not that the ship has turned a little bit. It's that is completely different. I mean, if you went back 15 years ago and thought about your marketing efforts compared to nowadays, you just go, wow, I've had to reinvent the ship. And the reason why we don't think about it that way is we've made incremental changes through the years, but it's important to get everybody up to date. And this is one of those topics that every time Joe and I do this workshop, we need to rewrite that section because social media changes so quickly that, the last time Joe and I had a workshop about social media was 18 months ago. Well, most of that stuff is out the door, and we stay on top of it enough that we can be very topical. So the marketing is a big thing. I spend a lot of time on recruitment and training and managing people. So that's the part of it where, is this workshop just for multi-ops? No, it's not. We've had plenty of single ops that come through this, but that specific chunk of time that I spend on building your multi-op is obviously a lot more effective to somebody who is actually trying to build a company.
I'd like to know, walk me through, if you would, what a typical day looks like for you.
It depends what day of the week, to be honest with you. Like my Monday, I had somebody ask me the other day, they want to make a presentation to me, and they say that Mondays are the best day for them. And I said, what's the worst day for me? Because Monday is my day, not only to do payroll, because that's obviously important. I want to pay my DJs in a timely fashion. So first thing I do Monday morning is I hit the ground running. I get all my payroll information in. I get it into QuickBooks. I print out checks. I sign my checks. My goal is by noon on Monday, I've got payroll done. I don't always make that goal because sometimes it's a matter of I haven't heard from all my DJs or it was an extremely busy weekend. But then I also want to hear from my DJs about their weekends. And I think that that's an important thing. If we've got 20 to 30 events going out, I don't just treat those as events. I want to hear, how was the party? What happened? What stood out for you? I'm also thinking nowadays about blogging. You know, if anybody tells me a cool, funny, interesting story from the weekend, my first thought is, hey, who was the photographer? Let's see if we can get some pictures, because that would make a fun blog. That would make an interesting post. So that's my Monday. Very recently, we actually just implemented a new off schedule, and I have now Tuesdays off, which is pretty amazing. I've never taken a full day off from midweek, or I shouldn't say never, but it's been many, many years. And then, the rest of the week, I am in the office managing. I don't do a lot of selling, but I am, managing the back end of the business. And Wednesday and Thursday, obviously, I'm doing my final prep for the weekends and making sure everything is ready to go out.
Podcasts,
Yeah, and on Friday, I just sit there going, please no phone calls, please no phone calls.
Right.
Nothing happen. So that's pretty much my week. Obviously, that's a broad picture, but that's the way my week looks. Yeah.
So are you able to really relax on your days off? I'm assuming, I've seen pictures on the beach and stuff, so it seems like you really make good use of your time when you do have it off, but do you struggle with that a little bit? Like, I'd really like to get some things done?
It's a good question. I don't think I struggle with it because I don't have guilt when I actually do stuff on my day off. I don't beat myself up about that. I'm fine with the fact that when I'm away from the business, if I think of something business-wise, I will do it. I will say, okay, let me write that blog or let me do this thing, even though it's my quote unquote day off. I don't torture myself about that. I think as a business owner, there is no such thing as I'm working, I'm not working. Business owners, we are often working when we're supposed to not be working. And if you beat yourself up about that and carry a lot of guilt, I don't think it helps. I heard a public speaker say that once, similar to smoking. Everyone knows you shouldn't be smoking nowadays. So if you're going to have a cigarette, just enjoy it. Don't smoke and then also be like, oh my God, I shouldn't be smoking this bad. So if you're going to do something so I have the same philosophy. I know that's a weird comparison, but if I'm on the beach one day and I think of a video idea and I start making notes on my phone, I don't also say to myself, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. It's your day off. It is what it is. I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, that there are times when ideas come to you and you run with them. You don't say, nope, I'm not working right now, I'm going to ignore this idea.
Yeah, I find when I'm on days off or whatever, I find that when I'm relaxing, that's when the creative juices start flowing and I conjure those ideas and then I implement them into the days I am on my work schedule.
You know what, Jim, you make an excellent point there. And it's also one of the reasons why we all should work into our schedule time away and time to relax. And you mentioned my dog earlier. We actually have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
I love nothing more than coming home and just being surrounded by the dogs. They haven't seen me all day. They come running up, they jump on my lap, they lick me, and then I put the leashes on and we go for a walk. And there are many times in that brainless escape, take the dogs for a walk or whatever, there's many times in those moments when I think of the next great, like, oh, I want to do this, or hey, I haven't done this, or I need to reach out to this person. And I think that those thoughts come from the fact that you're allowing yourself to kind of escape and you're opening your mind up. So I think that what you said there is extremely important, and we shouldn't just gloss over it. If you don't build into your schedule time to relax and time to just kind of quote unquote get away from the business, you're not allowing yourself time to find that next great creative idea.
Absolutely. I'm really excited, Mike. I just started listening to your latest project, watching your latest project, Music History for the Mobile DJ. I love it. It's killer.
Thank you.
When did you decide to work on this, and what goal did you have in mind when putting this product together and out in the industry?
This is actually one that's been sitting on the back burner for a number of years now.
Okay.
I put out my original training DVD / the Word document, my textbook and everything else. I put that out about 8 years ago now. And in that, it's not a project where you can just sit somebody down and say, here, watch this and you'll become a great DJ. Because when it comes to the performance end of teaching somebody to DJ, I really believe that it's very hands-on and it takes watching somebody perform and then giving them constructive criticism and feedback and kind of building them up. So I don't think that you can ever replace that part of training with a video. But I do think the music history part is a part where you can sit somebody down and say, watch this, and then come back and I'll test you next week. And so that's what I have finally put together. A number of people, when I released that first DVD, they said, why can't you just make a video out of the music history part of it? And so it has been sitting there on the back burner for a while, and it took me finally sitting down. And I mean, if you're starting to watch it, I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that there was so much preparation involved, and so, you know, I had to get all these songs lined up and everything prepared and everything organized before I then actually went to a classroom, which it literally is a classroom that I rented out, and basically, you know, my wife, God bless her, wrote every single one of those songs and artists on a chalkboard for me.
That was her that did that, because you said recently that your writing is not the best.
No, and that's why I asked my wife to do it. My wife is a little bit of an artist.
Okay.
She went to FIT, and she's got a beautiful penmanship.
Yeah.
When I had this vision of me in a classroom kind of teaching this in front of a chalkboard, I said, well, I can't write it myself. So I asked Kelly, and she did it for me. And then it was one of those things where I told her, hey, babe, would you do this? I've got some names, and I was very vague about how much. And then when she said yes, I literally handed her like 14 pieces of paper, double spaced, not double spaced, single spaced, double columns. And she was like, I'm writing all of this out. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, honey. I appreciate it. So yeah, the writing that you see in the video is all my wife. But going back to the original point, as you can, I'm sure, appreciate, there was a lot of preparation that went into that, and I wanted to make sure I covered every genre that's important, every artist that's important within the genre, and a couple of songs from each artist. So I don't want to overwhelm the viewer, but I wanted to make sure there's over 300 songs that are played and are mentioned, and I wanted to make sure that that's enough to really give everybody a good, solid base of the music history that we in our industry need to know.
I'm up to the Rolling Stones right now. That's how far I got. So it's about 7 hours, right?
It is. I think it clocks in right around 7 hours. Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, all the preparation that you put into this, it's 7 hours in length. So how long did it actually take to do the filming of that?
2 days, and probably two about 8-hour days. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And some of that, some of those delays had to do with, there were times where I was finished. Like, we had basically 2 rooms. So I would do one room while Kelly wrote in the other room, if you can imagine that. And there were times where I was done in the one room and I walked in and Kelly still had like 2 more lines of writing to do before we were done. So some of that. And then, you know, I put a few bloopers in just because I think bloopers are always funny and people appreciate them. But just to show the viewer that, no, I'm not perfect. I don't get it right every single time. And there are times where I have to like go over what I was trying to say a few times to get it right. But yeah, I would say there's probably about 16 hours of shooting to come up with about 7 hours of footage.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too. I mean, for example, when I first started DJing, I had an extensive knowledge of hard rock, metal, alternative. When I was playing out live as a frontman in a band, that was really what I was focused on, right? But I had a decent amount of knowledge about other genres of music. But then when I started DJing, I really had to familiarize myself with music that reached generations and also branch out. So it took some time to learn music that works well for weddings, among other types of events. So what a great project to catch you up and educate people such as myself and, of course, DJs that are starting off now.
Well, thank you, Jim. I've noticed that when I train people, most people know the music that has been popular in their lifetime, or at least since they were 10 to 15 years old. But then everything prior to that, they kind of lump together as oldies. And that's dangerous, because if you're a 30-year-old person, you know, that takes you back to the late 80s, and you can't lump 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s into one barrel and say that's all oldies. You really need to know the difference between, you know, if a client says to you, I'd like some Motown music, you need to know that that's different from disco and different from 80s music and everything else. So that's really always been my goal when I teach music history, and that was certainly my goal when I put this project together. And let me just say, by the way, I knew that about you, that you had a great background in hard rock, because you did one of those, I don't know, I forget what you called it, but you did My Life in 30 Songs, which is what I called my project. And I listened to that, Jim, and I really appreciated that. And,
cool.
And you know, that was something Joe Bunn came up with the original concept, I think, and did it. And then I did it, and I encouraged other people like yourself to do it. And I found that I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you had such a musical background, and you were in bands early on, and it taught me to appreciate where you come from as a lover of music. My friend Quayne, I don't know if you know Quayne from St. Louis, but he's done one. I've listened to his, and I've gotten to kind of appreciate his background. So if anyone who is watching this and doesn't know what I'm talking about, reach out to Jim or I and take a listen to the ones that we've done. And I encourage everyone to do it. I went to therapy probably about 15 years ago. And to me, this was better than therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Looking back on my lifetime and thinking of some of the songs that really had an impact on me, especially as a teenager and as I was growing up, really, to me, it was more powerful than therapy was. Maybe that means I didn't have a good therapist back in the day. But yeah, it really was great. And I enjoyed yours very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think it's important because to hear people's stories and and where they come from, you learn so much about people through music, and especially in our industry as well, because people are shaped by the music. And to learn about you specifically and Joe and listening to that, I loved it. And I hope more people do it like you said, too. I'm going to listen to
I really do. Yeah. Seek out Quayne's. Are you connected with Quayne on social media?
Yes.
Yeah, so ask him to send you the link. And again, I think you'll enjoy it. And by the way, if I don't mean to be distracting off camera here, but one of my dogs just came up, and so I'm petting her.
It's all good. So, I gated mine downstairs just to make sure she didn't jump on the couch. So,
if I gated them, they'd be upstairs barking right now. And so it's just better. Shay is over here sleeping on the couch, and he just came downstairs, and she needs some daddy loving. So I'm petting her. All good.
Yep. So much to talk about. So can you share a little bit about the Mike workshop you did with LaForce in Dallas?
I just came back from that. I was down there last week. So this is Glenn Roush is a good friend of mine in the industry, and he owns a phenomenal multi-op down in Dallas, Texas called LaForce. And he actually brought me down 4 years ago, I think, to do a microphone workshop with his crew, which is basically he had a meeting with his staff, and he brought me in, and everyone performed. Everyone did bridal party introductions, and afterwards I had a chance to critique and offer some construction criticism and also spotlight the good things and it's basically the same way that I run my training. And so we did that about 4 years ago, and I've done that for a number of multi-ops, and Glenn is, I think, only the second one that brought me in for a second time. He said that his staff had such a great experience a few years ago and learned so much that they wanted to bring me back. And so we did it last week. It worked out very nicely. I was down there for, again, Cowboys game, which didn't exactly work out because my Cowboys got blown out. Yep. But I flew down, spent some time with him and his guy Nate, and we went to the Cowboys game. And then the next night, I basically spent the whole day with Glenn, got to check out his new office. And then that evening, we had a microphone workshop, and 18 MCs on the microphone, or actually maybe it was 20. Anyway, it was a lot. And it was a really hard microphone workshop to do. And I put this on Facebook, and I really meant it. I wasn't just saying this. His crew is really, really good. And so for me to pick apart somebody and try to give them pointers on how to improve when somebody's really good is a challenge. But I felt like I met that challenge, and we all went out for dinner afterwards, and the compliments were great, and everybody said again that they felt like they got a lot out of it. So I think it was well worth it. And I invite any multi-op out there, if this is something that you want to do with you and your crew, reach out to me. We can schedule it. We can get it on my calendar. And we can make it happen.
That's cool. And not only you get the whole business training aspect of it and the critiques, but you get to have that downtime too afterwards to kind of hang out and just shoot the shit or whatever you want to do. Really.
Yeah, listen, I love this industry. I love talking about this industry. I love hanging out with people who are in this industry and shooting the shit, as you say. And so yes, it's work for me to do a microphone workshop, but it's also fun to spend a day kind of, looking under the hood, if you will, of somebody else's business and sharing some ideas and concepts and everything else. And so, yeah, anybody who wants to bring me in, we can talk about the logistics and we can talk about the price. Just feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Super cool. Yeah. So just to back up a second for the Dallas game with Nate and the other guys. So it looked like you had like killer seats for that too.
Oh my God. Killer seats. Yeah. Really good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we were literally in the end zone. It was the Sunday night game a couple weeks ago, Eagles Cowboys. And if you remember that game, early on the Eagles missed a field goal, which is basically the only thing they did wrong all day. And that ball literally came right at us. Nate got his hand on it, but it bounced off of his hand, and the guy behind us wound up catching it. But that's how close we were to the field. That a missed field goal wound up in our row.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I listen to Nate's Mixcloud mixes too. Those are awesome, and I check yours out on SoundCloud.
Yeah, Nate is really a phenomenal mixer and a great MC as well, because he was part of the Microphone Workshop, so I got to see him do his introductions and stuff. But Nate is one of those just all around super talented guys.
That's cool. So in regard to growing a DJ company, I started my business in 2012 and was a single op until recently. As of last January, I trained my first MC, Mike. He's been doing a great job working weddings and getting rave reviews. He went through 12 weeks of training with me it was 6 hours a week. Now, when would you say is the best time to start expanding and moving from single op to multi-op? And how do you know when it's the right time to do so?
I think that's a great question, Jim. I think a lot of it comes down to how many leads are you generating. If you are a single op and you find yourself turning down a lot of work because you are booked up, you're getting those phone calls and hey, Jim, I saw you at a party and we want to book you, and you look at your calendar and you're already booked that day, and you have to refer a friend in the industry. If that happens more than a couple of times a year, it's time, because that means you're generating more referrals than you can handle. And I think that's when it's time to do it. It is a difficult sell, and it's one of the things we talk about at the PhDJ Workshop. It's the concept that I've always referred to as selling down, and I'm sure you've come across this now too, when somebody calls or emails and says, Jim, we love you, we want you, and you say, well, I'm not available, but this guy Mike is. Well, great. Now they want to know, well, who's Mike? And you need to have a number of tools in your toolbox to help sell this guy Mike. But you can do it, and it's something that every multi-op, that's a challenge that every multi-op faces, and most of us, accomplish, and we do well. But that's when I would suggest you take that first step, when you personally are turning down too much work. Okay, that's cool. So I'm on the right track then. That's what's happening. And I was wondering, because I was thinking back to just, okay, do you have to be completely booked, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, and then start doing it? Or should you just, as you mentioned, just be... Yeah, I would say when you've got those, because let's face it, we're always, no matter how big or small your company is, you're always going to have those challenges where there's Fridays and Sundays where you can't seem to fill, but every Saturday, those busy Saturdays are packed out. And a company of my size has that challenge. A single op has that challenge. So it's not a matter of waiting till you're booked out on every Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It's a matter of, on those busy dates, are you turning down, multiple jobs? And if that's the case, then, because then, think about it, to start this other DJ, you don't even need to start doing marketing right away, because your marketing is already in place to fill your calendar plus some. So you don't even have to say, well, I'm starting a new guy and I have to take on a bunch of new ads or showcases or anything else. Whatever you're doing is already enough to fill one plus more calendar. Yeah, and when Mike first started doing weddings too, I was shadowing him on some weddings, and he freaked out the first time that happened. And I think it affected his performance too, because I was there and he was just, he's uptight. Sure, that's nerve-wracking. Sure. Yeah. So I felt for him, he did a really good job, but I think I definitely affected his performance. Well, I could see it last week at that microphone workshop that I did. You got MCs that are seasoned, that are experienced, that do tons of weddings, and you could feel that some of them were more nervous than usual because you got Glenn, the owner of the company, sitting in the room, and then you've got this guy that they've flown in from New Jersey, and they've talked me up. I mean, when I met some of their staff who I hadn't met before, they were, Mr. Walter, it's a pleasure to meet you. So they had obviously built me up. So yeah, I mean, that ratchets up the nerves a little bit more than going out and doing a wedding, no doubt. So let me ask you this, Jim, and if this moment hasn't happened yet, prepare yourself for it. Have you taken a phone call yet or an email where somebody says, hey, we saw you at a wedding, we want to have you, and then you go, great, which wedding? And you find out it wasn't yours, it was Mike's? Not yet, no. Okay. No. That is a great moment when it happens, and there's two different ways you can handle that as a multi-op, as a business owner. the first way is your ego gets bruised a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the bad way because, you know what I mean? And there are guys in our industry who are like, oh, and that's not me. That's the other guy.
I wouldn't take it that way.
You shouldn't because A, a lot of that is a compliment to your training.
Yes.
And B, that's the sign that now it's time to bring in the third guy. Because now you plus Mike are filling not only your own calendars, but plus one. So that's the natural progression of any multi-op. And please, you know, you and I are connected on social media. Hit me up someday and say, I did it. I took a referral from Mike. Because that is listen, if you only started doing weddings this year, it's kind of natural. But that moment will happen soon enough where you take a referral and it ain't for you, it's for your other guy. And I think that's a wonderful moment for any multi-op owner.
I'm looking forward to it. Running your multi-op, I picked up your book back in 2013. At that time, I was considering expanding. So I went through it, but I wasn't really putting in place the plan. It was just getting the knowledge, you know. So now that I've done so, I've gone back and reread it a few times. Mike, how have you been successful in retaining your talent at Elite Entertainment?
I mean, listen, the whole second half of my book is devoted to that. So that's a tough one to answer in a few minutes. But, you know, I think the big answers I can give to that are treat people well, pay them well. You have to pay them competitively. No matter what kind of bond you create with your staff, you know, if you're paying them 1/4 of what the market in your area is paying their staff, you're going to lose them eventually. So you have to pay people competitively. You have to treat them fairly. And I just think you have to have an open line of communication. You know, the challenges that I have with a staff member, and they do come up from time to time. The very first thing I say is come into my office, let's sit and chat.
Okay.
I've never been a believer of, you know, I don't want this guy talking behind my back and I don't want to be disgruntled behind his back. You know, I'm a New Yorker at heart and I'm a face-to-face kind of guy. It's my generation where if we got a challenge, let's sit down, let's hash it out, let's talk it out, man to man or man to woman. And I think that for the most part, that's enough. And knock wood, it's been enough for the last decade and a half because I have not lost talent to become my competition. When I lose talent, it's either they're getting out of the industry, which happens, or they're moving out of my area, which unfortunately happens as well. I don't know if you knew Corey Fox or if you know Corey Fox. You know, Corey was one of our veterans, a great MC, a very, very popular. And, you know, he told me a year and a half ago, and that's how respectful he was to my business. He told me a year and a half ago that he was going to move to Miami in 2017. We knew exactly what date to stop booking him. So he did work for Elite right up until the day he left. But he's gone. And that's, you know, it's a hard blow to lose somebody like that. Yeah. But I'd rather lose somebody like that to moving to Miami than going down the street and working for my competition. So I think, like I said, it's a topic that we talk about at the workshop, and I think I devote about half of my book to that topic because it's so critical. So I couldn't give you every single point here, but I think those are the broad strokes. Treat people well, pay them competitively, and have a very open line of communication with them.
It says a lot too. I mean, the respect there just is that he has to let you know in advance about that, because it is an industry, you know, where you are booking far out in advance, a year or two. So for him to do that was admirable.
Yeah, that's something I drill into my staff from day one, that this is not a traditional job where you can call out, where you can give 2 weeks notice. And I think people understand that. It helps that most of my staff is married. So when you talk to somebody about the importance of the wedding day, if they've been married, they can appreciate that. They say, oh yeah, I get it. Because my wedding day, I thought the vendors that I hired were that important. I understand why I can't just say, hey, I'm moving to Miami next week. You know what I mean? Yes. So I instill that in my staff from day one. Some people say to me, Mike, how do you handle a staff of your size? And, you know, don't you get a lot of people calling out and a lot of emergencies? And to be honest with you, we don't. I mean, I don't remember the last time, and again, I got to knock wood here because I don't want to jinx myself, but I don't remember the last time we had a covered MC for an emergency. And if we did, it was really an emergency. It wasn't just, you know, like somebody had a, 99.4 fever and didn't want to make a gig. So I think that comes from really instilling it in your staff from day one how important this job is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, do you set personal and business goals? And if so, what is your goal setting process? How do you do that?
Boy, I'm probably the worst person to ask when it comes to that. I'm not one of those guys like.
I'm super surprised about
5 years ago, I didn't write down this is where I'm going to be in 5 years. I mean, I think my immediate goal every year is to stay in business. If that sounds like a pretty not very effective goal, but I mean, I want to make sure Elite is profitable. I want to make sure that I'm saving for my future. I think that probably my number one goal is to make sure that I'm happy. I want to make sure that this is still something that's fulfilling for me, and it still is. I love running a business, and I love DJing. So I think every year I kind of check in with myself about those things, but I'm not. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not a multi-millionaire. Maybe if I was better at setting goals and everything else, but I've never been that type of person. There are probably much better people to ask that question to in the industry.
Really? Wow. Okay. I'm really surprised, like I said, but so I started off, I did that. I used to write out goals and say in 5 years at this date, I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. But then,
how did that work out for you, Jim? Did you achieve those things?
Yeah, I attained those goals, or get very close to them, so it was in the right direction for the most part, and I think it helped kind of put my thoughts together and do that. But I'll tell you what, I found in the last few years that I do that same type of idea, but I make mental notes of that instead, and then I think it works just as well. For example, I mentioned to one of my guys, I'm like, what, Mirror Me booth is a pretty cool thing to add to a service. I'm just going to put it on my business card. I put it on my business card, printed them out before I even had that, and it kicked me in the ass because it made me actually pursue that further, and now I have the service. So,
yeah, I don't even know if that's goal setting as much as just challenging yourself. But I've heard DJs talk about that, and I think we've practiced it a couple times where if you really want to motivate yourself to do something, book it.
Yeah.
If you didn't back in the day, if you didn't have a photo booth, and I know pretty much everybody has photo booths nowadays, but like if you didn't have a photo booth and you said, well, maybe I'll get one, the next time you take a phone call, let's say it's a wedding 6 months from now that says, hey, we want to add a photo booth, book it. Book a photo booth, because now you have to go get one, and you have to make sure by the time this wedding happens that you have that photo booth operable. So I think there's something to that. Just put it out there, promise somebody that you're going to get it done, and then you'll do it.
Well, listen, Mike, I hope you and Kelly have a relaxing Christmas and an abundant New Year. Let's do this again, please, and sooner next time.
Well, I'm honored that. So I got to be, do I understand this correctly? I got to be your first guest.
Yes.
And now this is basically your 1 year anniversary show, yes. I'm assuming. So, Jim, I'm touched. I'm honored. Thank you for giving me that role.
Nice. Thanks for watching DJ Center Stage TV, and we'll see you next time.
Happy holidays, everybody.